Hello, welcome to another episode of Decks Revisited. So in this sort of extension of the original series, I'm now going through some decks that I'm finding in my collection which possibly have never been certainly unboxed on the channel at this point, but maybe never featured on their own, maybe part of another video. As I find other stuff, it may be just revisiting with some of these decks that have already been on the channel but would benefit from a nicer up-close view at the deck. But at the moment we're looking at some of my, or all of my 10th edition theme decks. So this is the black one. They were mono-coloured decks. Each one of them had a legend as the sort of face card or whatever you call it. So, and these were 40 card decks as well, as I think I pointed out before, which was the norm for, at that point, if a theme deck was a core set theme deck. Of course, it became what eventually all intro decks for a period of time. When you went from theme to intro, became 41 cards. But when you got theme decks that were core sets, they were 40 cards. And then all the other stuff, the other expansions, and set expansions, they were all 60 cards. And then ultimately, over time, we went back to 60. So these, came originally unsleeved in one of these. It looks pretty thin because it is only 40 cards. They had an additional card, which were these stats cards, and then, as I think I've shown you before, there was an insert, and these were the same in all of the decks. So they had on one side, this. Let's go into the back one. There we go. So sort of giving you some idea of the colour palette. And then on the other side, the deck list, and there's the one for the black cards. Now, if you're familiar with 10th edition, you'll probably know that it was the last core set, which was 100% recons. Up to that, after that, core sets ended up being 50-50. But they didn't specifically say, like if you've ever bought, I don't know, certain decks, like I think the dual decks where they would list the sets that certain cards came from, but they didn't do that with these decks. Okay, so we have our rares first. So one copy of Ascendant Evincar. There's also a Mortivore in the deck. And then I've arranged this in terms of sort of the curve, basically just casting cost order for the rest of the cards, both commons and uncommons. And then we'll get to look at some basic land at the end. So we've got some vampire bats here. So how many copies do we have? So a couple of copies of those. An Unholy Strength. That's our 1-drops. Drudge Skeletons are in here. It's one of those. Yeah, you'll see with these again, as you progress through these theme decks that came out, there was a high degree of variance. So, single Thrall Surgeon, single Terror, and a single Cruel Edict. I suppose the nice thing as well is it got you to see a lot of cards, in addition to the decks being quite varied every time you played them, and it took a while for, I suppose, you get to get bored with the deck. But you got to see quite a number of cards from the set if it was your first exposure. So you saw there had Demon's Horn, which was one of those Lucky Charm type things, and there's one of each of those in the appropriate colour for each of these decks. So Assassinates in here, Mind Rot. Looks like we've got a couple of those. There's a Looming Shade, so we're in the sort of 3-drop territory now. Severed Legion. A couple of copies of that. Good old Consume Spirit. And those X black spells, which has a drain effect on it. Bottle Gnomes are in here, actually, that was in the set. There was a Dross Crocodile. Gravedigger. Diabolic Tutor was in the set, and in this particular deck, Essence Drain and a Massive Ghouls. So yeah, a lot of one-offs in this deck actually, an awful lot. So the only things that had multiple copies were what, the Vampire Bats and the Mind Rot and the Severed Legion, I think. And that was it. Everything else is just a one-of. Okay, so now moving on to the important part, our basic lands. So if we're in luck for these, we should see. So we got a number, first lot here, all the same artwork, but then so second piece of artwork. We have a third piece. Are we going to see 4 here? This is the question. I think we know the answer already if you've seen previous episodes of me looking at these decks. Last 2, and there we go. That's our 4th piece of artwork. So yeah, a core set with 4 pieces of artwork in it. Who can complain about that, eh? And there we have it. Hopefully you enjoyed that flip through of the Evincar's Tyranny deck. I'll include any associate videos from the channel that I think might be appropriate for this as well. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.